waits in the last days. And that's what he expects us to do, get off our couches, get off our butts, listen to him so he can lead us. I just get so tired of the people who think, well, I'm going to pray and ask the Lord to take care of that. And then he gives you an answer, a reason, a way to take care of things, and you refuse to do it because you're still going to sit on your couch. It reminds me of that helicopter story. Those people sitting on the roof of the house, the guy's sitting on his roof praying for a way out. The Lord sends a helicopter 3 times to him. And each time the helicopter comes, he says, oh, no, I'm praying, the Lord will take care of it. He'll get me off here. so the helicopter leaves. That's what it reminds me of.
Well, I sent you 3 helicopters, guy. What else do you want?
That's exactly what he said when he died, was at the pearly gates. I sent you 3 rides.
Yeah.
You know, and some people just refuse to open their eyes, that the Lord works in many ways. It's not always just, okay, I'll handle it, you don't have to do anything. You know, if that was the case, none of us would have to be working to witness and spread his name. He would just take care of it himself, wouldn't he?
What? Yeah.
Then he would lift people up.
Because I get bold and I try to talk about it, you know, because like Christians will go to church on Sunday and they won't talk about God until next Sunday.
I know. And
you know, so I'm during the week talking to people, you know. I think it's one of the Masonic ploys that they say don't talk about politics and religion at work.
Yeah.
That's just to keep everybody from not talking about God.
Well, let's say you're not arguing to death.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't sit in a room full of Christians and not be arguing. It's impossible.
It'd be a fellowship.
What's fellowship? As long as it's all nice to the treetop stuff. Don't get into the meat of the word, because as soon as you get into the meat, it's an argument. Well, I believe this. Well, I believe that. Well, what's the Lord say?
Well, that's why I get paranoid, because I don't know. Sometimes I'm wondering if I talk to someone who's really connected, you know.
Yeah, and that's the big difference, because I hear it all the time from people. Well, I believe this, and well, what's the Lord told you? Because you know what? There's 2 different types of opinions. There's facts that the Lord has told you, revealed something to you that you know is the truth. And then there's opinions that, well, this is what I've been told all my life, so I'm just kind of still believe this. It's your opinion. You know, so you know what you know when the Lord himself teaches you something. But the rest of you just have opinions. And people will fight, argue, and hem-haw over opinions like you wouldn't believe. And that's where the fighting and the arguments come in, because some of them don't have any truths related to them at all from him. Have never been led by him into any area of truth, because, you know, to them seeking him is okay, I'm praying, I pray, and I ask, you know, yeah, but when they're praying, they're giving them their Christmas wish list, or I want this, I need that. How many are just really in prayer asking him, teach me the truth in all things, teach me if this is true, teach me if that's true, teach me the truth in this? And then he'll lead you around, teach you the truth. And then I still get some of these people, he'll start leading them to the truth, and they'll think it's their job right then and there to email me and come into arguments and hassle me over what's on my website. It's like you're praying for truth, the Lord leads you to my stuff, and now you want to yell and argue with me? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Oh, man.
And so they'll come back about 6 or 8 months later, whatever, you know. But, yeah, you always get these people who think it's their sole job now to try to reveal the truth back to me about Paul or whatever. That's usually the biggest one. The thing is, you know what, I had all of Paul memorized. I had all of his books memorized. He was the only one I ever read. And so when I started praying for truth in all things, the first person the Lord taught me about was the deceptions of Paul. That was a wake-up call. It was a huge wake-up call.
Do you actually know the bloodline of Paul? Does he come from, like, Abraham's handmaiden side, or? Well,
he was from the tribe of Benjamin, but he was not of true Jewish or Hebrew blood. He was the Edomite. It says that the wolves the ravening wolves come from Benjamin, and he was a Benjamite. It was him. It was Paul. That they would be ravening wolves. There was these Benjamites. He was also a Pharisee, his father worked in the Roman government. Paul was an agent from the government. Paul was steeped in the belief of Mithraism. I don't know if you've done any research on Mithraism.
No.
But Mithra, if you saw a picture of Mithra today, it's the same Buddhist god, this idol that the Buddhists have.
Huh.
And it's Mithra, and it's this ugly, grotesque thing. It's got huge boobs. I don't know what it is, a male or a woman. I think it's both, one of those hermaphrodites.
Yeah.
But it's just gross. And Mithraism, it was steeped. The whole Roman government was involved in it. Mithraism back then was like the Masons are today with us. All of our government officials, everybody's in Masonry. That was the same thing with Mithraism back then. And one of their initiation rites was to have a revelation by blinding light. And so what do we have on the Damascus Road revelation with Paul? That's where he incorporated this whole revelation of light thing. Everything he did was deceptive. When he quoted, he does have some very good stuff. Because he has to. I mean, in order for a false prophet to truly work, you have to have 90% truth, 10% throwing the poison. That's where you damn their souls. And so he had some really good stuff. But then he'll quote David. He loves to quote David. But he misquotes everybody he quotes. And then what he'll do is throw in a lot of beliefs from the Talmud into his Gospels. Contradicts himself through the Gospels. You can read his first book, 1 Corinthians, then jump over to Galatians. And he's practically psycho by then. Totally different person from 1 Corinthians all the way over to Galatians. Totally different person.
Well, can I share just one more thing before I cut out?
Sure, go ahead.
You know about Bohemian Grove, and other sites have talked about Bohemian Grove and the world elite going there and all that and worshiping the Molech and all that.
Right, the Molech.
Yeah. Another thing, like I said, I started looking at the front of the Bible, the Old Testament and stuff. There's a Chronicles 33. I think that's what I was talking about earlier when Manasseh took. Anyway, back then, kings that obeyed God's Sabbath and stuff it just drove it into you that people prospered when they followed God. And when they went into paganism, they would get sold into slavery and stuff like that. But one of the times when the God's temples got torn down and they built up the places of worship for Baal or Baalim, they said that they built up the groves where they worshipped. And I found that very interesting, that's where these world elite do in these groves. So it just traces way back there, and it's still the same people. And I bring it up to people, and they still, like people I know, and they still can't grasp it. It's just,
we have these groves and these grottos.
Right there.
That's where you'll find a lot of these, the apparitions, Fatima. Those 3 kids were at a grotto in Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
Because they used to have...
a grove also?
What's that?
Was that a grove also that they're...
It was a different type. It was one of these, they looked like caves, and they would stick idols in them back in the ancient days. And that was like a temporary type of temple for an area where they would stick their gods and go there and worship them.
Yeah.
Instead of, this whole Bohemian Grove thing is a more grander on a larger scale type thing. But yeah, the terminology is different.
Chronicles 33, that they built up the groves where they worship Baalim, and that's exactly what they're doing up there in Bohemian Grove.
And passing their children through the fire, sacrificing their children to Molech. It's as ancient as the Old Testament. People don't, it's the same stuff. There's nothing new.
That's a lot of what I do. So I try to find connections, from what's happening today, and I found it right there. I'm like, it's.
Yeah, and you know what? All of these families, it's still a big thing to sacrifice your first child to Satan. And I knew that the Bushes had. I couldn't prove it. And then finally, I think it was last year or the year before, I was reading somewhere where George Bush Jr. was still messed up over the death of his sister. They never had a funeral. They never really acknowledged her death. She just died, and then she was gone. There was no funeral, nothing for her.
Wild.
And so I knew it, but and when I saw it in writing, I was like, yeah, see, there it is. He had a sister that died. Because they will sacrifice their first child. A lot of them will have these children away from public spotlight, so you don't know they have children, because they know they're going to sacrifice their first one.
Yeah.
But that's just, some of them will just all of a sudden be born and then die of a, natural cause, or just sweep it under the rug type of death. Give it some kind of medical
like all those suicides.
Well, I'm talking children.